Good morning, children. So we have already finished up with vacuoles. We are on to the next topic now, and this topic is we are left with one more topic after this, and that topic which we are left with is cilia and flagella. And right now we will do microbodies first, and then we will switch over to cilia and flagella. So let's start with microbodies. Microbodies are, as the name indicates, small bodies. Small sized organelles. Organelles found in cytoplasm. Cytoplasm of eukaryotic cells. So we have to be very particular about it that these are found only in eukaryotic cell. What is a eukaryotic cell? In which a true or definite nucleus is present. That cell we call as eukaryotic cell. So this is found in, these are small sized organelles which are found in the cytoplasm of eukaryotic cell. We have come to know this. Now one more thing, one more information about the microbodies I would like to give you, that they originate from a special organelle, or all the microbodies, they originate from endoplasmic reticulum. They originate from endoplasmic reticulum. They originate from endoplasmic reticulum. This is another important point which we have to keep in mind. So two things which we want to say about microbodies are that, as the name indicates, these are small sized organisms, organelles which are found in cytoplasm. They are found in eukaryotic cell, and also they originate from endoplasmic reticulum. Is the board clear to you? What is the written material clear to you all? Just let me know, beta. Whatever I have written, is it clear to you, or any difficulty in looking at? Okay, Yashika, to every, okay, fine, it is clear. Fine. Okay. So these, they originate, fine, but I have got your message. So they originate from endoplasmic reticulum. This also we have come to know. Now, there are three types of microbodies. The microbodies are of three types. There are three types of microbodies. And those three types of microbodies are, we have three names for them: spherosomes, glyoxysomes, and peroxisomes. So I'll write here spherosomes, the first type. This is the first type, spherosomes. The second type is glyoxysomes. And the third type of microbody is peroxisomes. So we have these three types of microbodies: spherosomes, glyoxysomes, and peroxisomes. Now, these three types of microbodies are present in eukaryotic cell, but it's not necessary that all the eukaryotic cells will have them. Either they are present in plant cells, or they are present in animal cells, or they are present in both the types of cells. So these spherosomes are present only in, I'll write first point as their presence. So here these are present in plant cells. These are also present in plant cells. I'll make a star to tell you what I have written about all. So these are present in both. When I say both, it means plants and the animal cells. So these are present in plant cells. These are also present in plant cells, whereas the third type is present in both. Now, I'll come to specifically spherosomes. I have told you about the presence. Now, I'll tell you that what is their function. Spherosome basically consist of, they contain, the second point is they contain acidic hydrolytic enzymes. So they contain acidic hydrolytic enzymes. That means if it is a spherosome, it will have inside acidic hydrolytic enzyme. And wherever hydrolytic enzymes are present, it brings about hydrolysis. So is responsible for hydrolysis. Responsible for hydrolysis. By hydrolysis means hydro means water, lysis means breakdown. That means breakdown in the presence of water. So, or we can also say responsible for hydrolysis or digestion of substance. Responsible for hydrolysis or digestion of substances. Now, this is the function of spherosomes. Wherever they are present, they will perform the function of hydrolysis. And just a minute, beta. They will, wherever they are present, they will perform the function of hydrolysis, and they will bring about digestion or breakdown of the substance. So this is what the function of this is. And the researcher who found out the spherosomes, glyoxysomes, peroxisomes, they are different. Now this was discovered by Perner. So the name of the scientist, discoverer. Here the name is Perner. P-E-R-N-E-R. Perner was a researcher who discovered this. So this was about spherosomes. We come to the next type. The next is glyoxysome. Glyoxysome, I have already told you, are present in plant cells. Now, what is their function? You know, the fats are also present in the form of fat globules. These are present in peanuts. These are present in various types of nuts and seeds. You know, the fat is present. That fat needs to be utilized, and for utilization, that fat is converted into carbohydrates first. So the fat for utilization, fat which is present in the plant cells here, the fat for needs to be utilized, and if it needs to be utilized, first of all, for utilization, it needs to be broken down. So for that, it has to be broken down. Now, how this breakdown of fat takes place? The process of breakdown of fat. The process of breakdown of fat, I'll write here, the process of breakdown of fat is known as beta oxidation. The process of breakdown of fat is known as beta oxidation. So this beta oxidation requires enzymes. This beta oxidation requires enzymes, and the enzymes which are required for beta oxidation or breakdown of fat are present in glyoxysomes. So the glyoxysomes contain the enzyme to bring about beta oxidation of fat. This fat has to undergo the process of beta oxidation so that it can be utilized. So we can also write it down like this: fats undergoes the process of beta oxidation to get converted into carbohydrates, and in the form of carbohydrates it is utilized, the fat is utilized. So the enzymes for this are present in glyoxysomes. Glyoxysomes has the enzymes to bring about beta oxidation of fat into carbohydrates so that it can be utilized by the cell. So this was another, and this, the discoverer of this is Brenner. Sorry, this is Perner. The discoverer of this is Beaver. Beaver. So this was the second glyoxysome, the function of second. Now one more thing I want to tell you. See, the hydrolysis, the hydrolytic enzyme are present in one more cell organelle, if you remember. Can you tell me the name of that cell organelle in which hydrolytic enzymes are present? Yes. Can you tell me the name of that organelle in which hydrolytic enzymes are present, beta? Where are these except besides spherosomes? These hydrolytic enzymes are present in one more organelle. Can you tell me the name of that organelle? Anybody who remembers? Where the hydrolytic enzymes are present? The name of that organelle where the hydrolytic enzymes are present. Yes, to bring about digestion. Yes, who remembers this? Who remembers this? Lysosomes. Very good, Rohan. Lysosomes. Yes, lysosomes. Fine. Lysosomes have the hydrolytic enzyme to bring about digestion of the waste matter, the microorganisms, or the dead tissue, the injured tissue, or the dead organelles, or the injured organelles, or the dying cell. And finally, it eats itself also. This is what happens. Now, what happens here? This, because this type of spherosomes are present in plant cell and they have the hydrolytic enzymes like lysosomes. So these spherosomes can are also known as plant lysosomes. So these are also known as plant lysosomes. These are also known as plant lysosomes. Now here, Beaver discovered it, and it has that enzyme for to continue the process of oxidation of fat into carbohydrates so that it can be utilized by the cell. We come to the third one. The third one are peroxisomes. Peroxisomes are present in both. These are present in animal cells as well as plant cells. Now, the important, what is the use of this? The use of this is, you know, in our body we have amino acids, we have uric acid. All this amino acid and uric acid in the body, amino acids, which are there in the body, and uric acid which is there in the body, this gets converted into hydrocarbons and hydrogen peroxide. The amino acids and the uric acid which is present in the body gets converted into hydrocarbons and hydrogen peroxide. Now this, the enzyme which is required for this conversion of amino acids into uric acid, this is catalase. This is also present in peroxisomes. Besides this, when this hydrogen peroxide is formed, this hydrogen peroxide is toxic in nature. This is toxic in nature. Because it is toxic in nature, anything which is toxic in nature is removed from the body immediately, like the urea which is formed, immediately removed from the body, okay, along with some water. Now whatever toxic substance, whichever toxic substances are formed in the body are removed from the body immediately. So this is one of the toxic substance which is formed in the body, and this is hydrogen peroxide. This has to be removed from the body. So how this hydrogen peroxide is removed from the body? This hydrogen peroxide, this in the presence of enzyme catalase, which is present in the peroxisome. This is converted into H2O and O2. Immediately, this is converted into H2O and O2. And this conversion is brought about by catalase, which is present in peroxisome. So this is the important function of peroxisome. What we can say that the breakdown of hydrogen peroxide, we can say breakdown of H2O2 which is toxic into harmless substances. Breakdown of hydrogen peroxide, which is toxic, into harmless substances is brought about by the peroxisome. By what? The enzymes present in peroxisomes. So this is brought about by the enzymes which is present in peroxisomes. So this harmful and toxic substance is immediately converted into harmless substance like water and O2. And this is because of the presence of the enzymes in the peroxisome. Now we come to the discoverer. The discoverer of this is Rodin. Rodin. Rodin was the one who discovered this. So beta, this was about the microbodies. Any difficult point in this or anything which you could not understand or anything you are finding difficult or any query based on this, you can ask me. Yes, bache. Any query based on this or any topic or anything you want me to repeat or anything which you are not able to understand about the microbodies, you can ask. Yes. Yes, bache. Okay. I've got the response from Rohan. Rohan is saying it's clear. Only one response I have got. Rest are not responding. Can you please, beta? Yes. Yes, children. Can you please respond quickly so that I can move on to the next topic? Okay, Sanvi. Okay, Deepika. Yashika, Lalit, Zainab, Amrita, Harsha, Sanvi, Siksha. So many are there. Any query? Okay, Siksha. Any query? Any question? Okay, Harsha. Any question based on this? Any query based? Okay, Ankita. Fine, Amrita. Okay. So, beta, most of the responses I have got, and I think this topic is Priya. Is it clear to you also? I think this topic is clear to you all. Priya, I didn't get your response. Lalit, I didn't get your response. Sepak, I didn't. Yes, Jasleen. Okay. Fine. Let me check who else is there. Manat, I didn't get your response. Sarthak, you are not responding. Khushman, Tadar, Ananya, Sepak, Zainab. Still, I have to. Okay, Manat. Sepak, fine. Manat, okay. Why did you join so late? Network issue? Is that network issue in Manat? Okay, fine. Fine. Sarthak, it's nice to hear you today. I think since I have started teaching for the first time, I can get your reply. That means you are sitting in the class today. And it's so nice. Thank you so much, Sarthak, for being in the class. And just stay like that. Okay, beta. So just I'll move to the next topic. And the next topic is cilia and flagella. Next topic is cilia and flagella. What is the importance of cilia and flagella? Why these cilia and flagella are required and where are these present? May I know the example where these are present and what is the use of cilia and flagella? Yes, anybody who can answer? You can unmute yourself and answer my question. Yes. You can unmute and you can answer my question, beta. You all are unmute. You can unmute yourself. For locomotion, fine, Rohan, it's correct for locomotion. And can you tell me an example, all of you, any of you, just tell me an example where the cilia is present and where the flagella is present. Okay, Rohan, in paramecium, you have written, but what is present in paramecium? Both the structures are present in paramecium. Is it? Both cilia and flagella are present in paramecium. Yes. Okay, fine. Paramecium cilia is present. Okay, can you give me a minute, beta? Okay, beta. So yes, in paramecium cilia is present, and in where is this flagella present? Where is this flagella present? Can I know? Yes, bache. Where is this flagella present? We have done this. We have already done this once. Yes, bache. Where is this flagella present? On the extreme side. No, but which organism? I'm asking which organism? In bacteria. Fine. Bacteria also have flagella. Where else? Where else beside bacteria? Where else? Chlamydomonas. Okay, yes. The most common of flagella is Euglena. So the cilia both are locomotory organs. Both are locomotory organs. Cilia. About cilia, cilia is small in size. Smaller in size, we can say, because we are comparing it with flagella. Smaller in size, and the second thing where it is present is, we can say, paramecium. Its lashing movement help in it lashing. It's when it beats, when the lashing movement takes place, it moves forward or backward. So if you draw paramecium, it comes to be like this, and it has a number of cilias are small in size and many in number. So here we have the cilias which are present like this on the body of the paramecium. And here we have again the cilias. And this is, here we have the mouth of the paramecium. So these cilia, they also help in the taking in the food, ingestion. Okay, so these are cilia. And if we come to the second flagella, flagella is longer than cilia, and because they are longer than cilia, so they are longer in size when we compare them with paramecium. They are longer in size and are present in Euglena. So how do they look like? One, this is flagella. This is present in Euglena. Okay, this is a whip-like structure. You know, in Hindi we call it hunter. So it is a whip-like structure. One or two are present and they are longer in size, and they also help in movement. And the organism they are present is Euglena. Is it clear, beta? Is it clear? Is it clear, bache? Okay. So this is cilia and glia. Now I'll tell you some differences between the two. This, the general thing I have told you. Now I'm going to tell you the difference between the two. So when we come to study the difference between the two, here I'm writing cilia and here I'm writing flagella. I've written cilia at one point, I have written flagella at another point. Now, when we come to the size of cilia and flagella, these are smaller. I'll write all the points now. Smaller in size. These are longer in size. So one is smaller in size, another is longer in size. Now, when we talk about like what is their length, so these are about, we can say, 4 to 10 centimeters. So the length of cilia is say 4 to 10 micrometers. 4 to 10 micrometers, and the length of this is about 150 micrometer, approximately 150 micrometer. So smaller in size, length is about 4 to 10 micrometers, and they are about 150 micrometers. When we see them, you know, they are more in number and they are few in number. So another point, when we talk of their number, numerous, we can say that they are numerous and they are few. Their number is few. When we say few, it means 1 to 3, about 1 to 3 to maximum 5, 1 to 5 in number. So they are few in number, they are numerous. The length is about 4 to 10 micrometer, and there the length is about 150 micrometer. Then another thing, where these are present, where the site where these are present, where the cilia are present. They are present all over the body, all over the body surface, all over the body surface these are present. Whereas flagella is present. See, when I drew that euglena for you, how did I make it? I made it here. That means euglena is, the flagella is present on the anterior side. So the next point we can write that present on the anterior side, on the anterior end of the body, present on the anterior end of the body. This is about the location of cilia and flagella. We come to another point. Now, the another point is about their movement. About their movement. The movement in case of cilia is of two types. Movement is of two types. Movement is of two types. What two types of movement? See, it shows two types of movement. One is synchronous, another is metachronous. The two types of movement, number one, synchronous, and number two is metachronous. What do we mean by synchronous and what do we mean by metachronous? See, if this is paramecium, we have some cilia here, okay, which we can say longitudinal, okay, and we have some cilia here also, here also, here also, so which we can say transverse. The movement which is shown by the longitudinal cilia is synchronous, and the movement which is shown by the transverse cilia is metachronous. Could you get this point, or shall I speak it again? The movement shown by the longitudinal cilia are synchronous movement. The movement shown by transverse cilia is metachronous movement. Is this point clear to you, beta? Is this point clear to you, beta? Yes? Or shall I speak this point again? Okay, fine. So synchronous means movement. I'll write here only longitudinal cilias. Longitudinal cilia. And here I'll write the transverse cilia. The movement shown by transverse cilia is metachronous. So we have two types of movement. Whereas if we see flagella, see the flagella are either one or two or three. You can write down it even less. Write down up to three. These are not more than this. So they are independent of any such movement. They move independently. We can say the same point here, the movement is independent. So the movement in case of flagella is independent. There are no longitudinal or transverse flagella. So they move independently. Just one or two are there. They will move on their own. Now, another thing. Another thing we can say that what happens in their case,